Hello, Darryl here from Select Driving School. Today I'm going to look at the second of the new manoeuvres from the new driving test due in on December the 4th. This involves car parks. Currently the driving test may include reversing into a bay and then driving out forwards, which will remain the recommended way of getting into a car parking space if possible, as it makes your exit much safer. However, we do now acknowledge that many times it will be practical for you to drive forwards into a car parking space, such as here at a supermarket car park, where you can see most people have driven forwards into their space because they probably want to get to their boots to load up with shopping, and there may be other reasons as well. So we're now looking to be able to test and make sure that people know how to do this safely, getting in, understand the amount of room they need, but also, more importantly, know how to get out of the space safely, because many accidents do occur within car parks where people reverse out, not taking account fully of their surroundings. There may not be serious accidents, but with the expense of car repairs these days, they're certainly not trivial. So I'm going to show you, first of all, how to drive into a space on the left or the right, and then I'm also going to show you how to reverse out, and I'm going to show you some of the potential errors that I expect people to make. If you like the video, please click like. If anybody has any subjects that they'd like me to cover, then please let me know, and you can contact me via my YouTube channel or via my website. Now for the first example, I'm going to enter a car parking space on my right. So I'm driving through the car park, obeying the road markings, so I'm on the left hand side, and I want to pick a space on my right hand side. Because I'm on the left of the car park, this should be relatively straightforward, as I already have plenty of swing room. There's no need for me to move over to the left to create more room. So turning in should be relatively straightforward. So here we go. So we drive forward, signal if you think it's needed, make sure there's nobody trying to overtake you, and then basically as we approach the space, almost as if you were turning into a road on a right turn, we turn the wheel fully to the right, and that will take us into the space, and we stop between the lines. Part one of the manoeuvre completed. We've driven forwards into the space. Now when the examiner asks you to do this, they will basically ask you to choose a space on the left or the right, and they won't expect there to be a car either side. If you choose to do it between two cars, that will be up to you, but equally you can go into an empty space. So the same piece of car park now, we're now going to go into a space on our left. I'm going to pick one a little bit beyond the lamppost that we can see here. Now if I were to try and turn from this close to the space, I would have to cut across the space closest to me to get into it. If there were cars either side, that would make that basically impossible without taking the side of my car into contact with the parked cars. So I need to create some room by moving over to the right hand side. So that's what I'm going to do. But before I do it, I am going to check my right mirror and check over my right shoulder. So I'm going to move over to the right. That's created the swing room, which now allows me to turn my wheel fully to the left, and that's going to bring the car into the space, lining up. You can see the lines ahead of me, and within the lines, nice equal space either side. And again, the next part would be to reverse out. Okay then, so once in a space, the challenge now is to reverse out safely. And this is really the main point of why this manoeuvre is now being included in the test. Too many people drive into a space feeling as though that's the relatively easy option, but then find that reversing out is more difficult than it should be, because they're not observing correctly and not really considering the consequences of a busy car park being used by pedestrians and other vehicles. Initially I'm going to show you how to reverse out. There's no cars either side of me. You can just see in the side windows that were empty, but we're still going to be making sure we're looking properly, because people can still be coming. When you do this on your driving test, this is likely to be the scenario you find yourself in. Reversing out without the hazard of the car either side. In a moment I'm going to show you how to reverse out with cars either side as well, and also demonstrate to you just how poor your view is. But at this moment we're concentrating on what is expected of you. So we're going to start the car up and we're going to reverse out of here. So engaging reverse gear. Now this car does have a reversing camera. You can glance at that, it will give you a good idea of exactly what's behind you, better than the mirror will do, or even potentially turning round, because it can see below the blind spot of the boot. But most cars that you drive as yet don't have this facility, so don't come to rely on it, especially if the car that you're practicing doesn't have it. So we're going to have a really good look round. Now on this occasion I'm going to reverse out and I'm going to take the car to my right. So I'm going to be reversing to the right, and that's where I really need to be sure is clear first. But also to my left as well, because as I back out I will be backing into the way of traffic. Now again, you have to consider that there may be cars parked either side, so we can't just turn the wheel as we come out, even though we've got an empty space. We are going to go back in a straight line to the point where we would be able to turn the wheel if a car was parked there. So straight line until you're about just over halfway out of the space. At this point, assuming you've got good clearance either side of you for any parked cars there, you should be able to start bringing the wheel round and not risk touching your front end against the side of the car, in this case the one on my left. So still checking around, turning the wheel, front of the car swings, looking right behind me as well, making sure it's clear, and getting the car back to my side of the car park. Once I've got around far enough out, engage first gear, again check all around to make sure that there's nobody in the way, and start to move away safely. So the key here is observation. I cannot emphasize it enough. Observation is what is going to be looked for by your examiner, and if it's not up to scratch, you will not pass. So we're going to look at going in between two cars now. We're going to go between the black and the silver car. So we're on the left hand side, they're on my right, so I don't need to make any more room. Check my mirrors, especially my right mirror and my blind spot. Getting alongside the black car, my wing mirror is just passing the end of that car, and then I do full lock with another check over my right shoulder. As you can see, we're already entering the space. We're already getting to the point where the wheel can be coming back to straight. The wheel is now straight, and we're just going down into the space, stopping just before the parking post, evenly on either side of the cars. Now we're going to park between two cars on our left hand side. There's a silver car and a black car just after the trolley park, so we're going to go there. So we're signalling left, having checked our mirrors. We're going to have to move towards the right, so there's a right shoulder check there and the mirror, giving ourselves a bit of room, and then again as the wing mirror passes the end of the silver car, full lock, that swings the car round, and as we go into the space, get aligned with the lines, aligned with the cars, taking the steering off and ending up stopping just before the parking poles within the lines and parallel to both of the parked cars. Okay, so I'm now going to show you what it's like reversing out from between two cars, and hopefully demonstrate just why this manoeuvre is not recommended if you can be avoided, because it's going to be a lot more tricky than driving out forwards. I have a large black car on my right and smaller hatchback on my left. Black car's higher than me. What I'm going to be doing is trying to look through their windscreens, not through the bodywork. I don't have x-ray eyes, and really being very careful and steady as I come out. I've got to remember that my back end will start to poke out of this space before I can see clearly. The reversing camera is going to help me a bit, but still I'm not going to rely on that. I'm going to be looking around, so there's going to be a lot of head turning going on. So I've got my car in reverse. People behind me, directly behind me, will know that I'm coming out. Looking around best I can, trying to look through the windscreens. At this point I've only just sort of moved a little bit in the space. I'll show you what my view out the sides is like at the moment, because really it's not very good at all, and then I'll show you again after I've got the car halfway out how it's improved. As you can see, the view was not very good, so we're going to move out a bit further, still looking around and look through the bodywork. listening as well. It's worth putting the windows down a little bit here at this point. That's going to help us hear traffic as well as see it. The reversing camera does help a bit, but as I say, we cannot rely on that. Looking through the windows, that's a lot more difficult today because it is raining, so they're not as clear as they could be. So really trying to strain the neck. I'm now halfway out the space. I'll show you again what the view is like. So as I said, we're now halfway out of this space. We can be seen, but we can't see clearly. Somebody's just walked behind the car there. We've got a car coming down from the right. Is he going to wait? Is he going to let us pull out? Oh, there's another car coming the other way, so I can't quite pull out yet. So here we go, pulling out, keeping the head busy. Turning the wheel. So we clear the car in front. And behind, and again there's not huge amounts of room, so he's had to position his car slightly away from me to let me get out, and there we are, we're out of the space now. Now, a couple of the mistakes that I anticipate that people may make when attempting this manoeuvre in the early stages. First one is getting too close to the bays on the left when you're asked to turn in. So similar to the earlier, we're turning to the left, just going past that lamp post, but we're very close to the bays, so when I turn in, I'm actually effectively driving through the bay to my left, and I can't get into the bay properly and straighten up. If I go any further now, I'll actually be driving into the bay in front, but my car is still cockeyed, it's nowhere near lined up. So first potential mistake is trying to turn from too close to the bays. Now, the second mistake that I can see people making is completely misjudging when to turn. So again, just past the lamppost. This time I'm going to move over to the right once I've checked, but I'm turning too soon and not enough, and as a result I just end up in between two bays as opposed to in a single bay. So we've got to make sure that we're turning at the right point. Imagine that you might be turning into a side road and how you would do that, and we've got to put enough turn on. Typically we're going to be looking at full lock. And the final mistake that I could potentially see people making will be if we're going to the right, instead of staying to the left, maybe moving over to the right in confusion and then getting too close to these bays, and then when we turn, again similar to being too close on the left hand side, we've left our back wheel in the bay next to us. We've also cut across it, so if there'd been cars parked there we would have had a problem.